We are on the 6th article of faith now, which reads, we believe in the same organization that existed in the primitive church, namely apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, evangelists, and so forth. There are a number of interesting things to point out here about the differences between how these offices were and are filled in the Christian church compared to how they are filled in the Mormon Church. The first and probably most obvious is that apostles actually come first in this list, whereas in the organization of the Mormon Church, they come second underneath the prophet. There's also technically 15 apostles in the Mormon Church instead of 12. Also for the Christian church, the apostles were specifically those who had personally witnessed Jesus. In Acts chapter 1, when the apostles are trying to pick someone to replace Judas Iscariot, they say of the candidates, "For one of these must become a witness with us of his resurrection." They specifically wanted a witness. Even Paul witnessed Jesus in a vision before beginning his apostolic work and writing. Now, we continue to have this sort of authority carried on through the writings of the New Testament in the Christian church. Christians also sometimes consider people like pastors to be a sort of apostle in that they are messengers and lead with vision and authority, but that sort of apostle is different than the type of apostles that traveled with Jesus and wrote the books of the New Testament, and which the Mormon Church claims to have. Prophets in the Christian church were also different than in the Mormon Church. The gift of prophecy is described as a spiritual gift given to some for the edification of the church, as every spiritual gift is meant to be. It was not an office held by only one person. The Old Testament type of prophet also changed with the change in the law and covenant when Jesus came and died, and the Old Testament type of prophet is more of the sort of prophet that the Mormon Church claims to have. Hebrews 1:1-2 very specifically says that in the past God spoke to our forefathers through the prophets at many times and in various ways, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son. The office of pastor, also known as elder or overseer, is also not really seen in the Mormon Church. The closest equivalent would, of course, be bishops, but they are not elders in the sense that Timothy or Titus were. For instance, Paul specifically talks about elders whose specific work is preaching and teaching in Timothy 5. Bishops don't do much more of this than other members. The office of elder in the Bible tends to be shown as one which men seek if they are called to it, which they must meet certain minimum qualifications for, such as being sound in doctrine and good family men, and which carries unique responsibilities for leadership and teaching, even if the elder isn't the main preaching pastor at a church. And finally, it is interesting to note that the Mormon Church doesn't actually define evangelists as missionaries and evangelism as something any member can do, even though that would be the obvious interpretation of what an evangelist is. In Teachings of the Prophet, page 151, it says, "An evangelist is a patriarch, even the oldest man of the blood of Joseph, or of the seed of Abraham. Wherever the Church of Christ is established in the earth, there should be a patriarch for the benefit of the posterity of the saints, as it was with Jacob in giving his patriarchal blessing unto his sons." In Bruce R. McConkie's Mormon Doctrine, under evangelists, he even says that applying the designation evangelist to missionaries and others who spread the gospel is a false tradition. Yet in the New Testament, when admonishing Timothy to be able to correct, rebuke, encourage, give careful instruction, and persist in sound doctrine, Paul specifically tells him to do the work of an evangelist. That does not seem like an appropriate context to talk about patriarchal blessings with Timothy, who was likely also a younger man. Evangelism is also considered a gift of the Spirit that any member can have when it's spoken of in 1 Corinthians, which again is not consistent with the Mormon office of patriarch, which is only for older men and very few people can have it. So we see in all this that the Mormon Church does not actually follow the organization of the primitive Christian church and has even strongly redefined those offices. No surprise there. And on an entirely different note, it's been a while since my last video, and I have some awesome personal news to share for those of you who aren't here to just be haters. We are due to have a baby boy at the end of February, or the beginning of March if he's stubborn. So I'm nearly 7 months pregnant. See, I have a tummy. And he's a kicker. So I'm sure he will be introduced to you at some point. And I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas.